I would like to thank everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Planning and Budgeting for Change with Oracle EPM Cloud. Today's webinar will begin in just a moment, but in the meantime, I have just a couple of quick things to go over. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will send out the link as soon as it's available. All participants will be muted during the session, but you'll notice on the right-hand navigation, there's a question box and also a chat feature. If you have any questions or technical difficulties, please reach out to myself. This is Erica Archer, or you can also reach out to Melanie Grandall. And any questions for the presenters will be addressed at the end of the webinar, but please, you can go ahead and enter them in at any time. We are excited to have Emtec's EPM practice leader, Dan Dostman, here with us today, and I know he's looking forward to educating you on this topic. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Dan Dostman. I'm the Managing Director for EPM Consulting and our Financial Services Vertical Lead here at Emtec. A little background on myself. I spent the past 20 years in the enterprise performance management consulting space, working with clients in advisory capacity very often to assess their financial systems capabilities, to craft strategies for enhancing performance through things like system architecture blueprints and execution roadmaps. I've also led many implementation engagements, including most all of the Oracle, Hyperion, and EPM Cloud applications. And I'm coming to you today from Columbus, Ohio. Later in the webinar, I'll be joined by a representative of the finance systems team for National Veterinary Associates, who provides some firsthand perspective on these topics. So let me briefly introduce you to Emtec. I'm part of the Emtec consulting services team. So we provide advisory and implementation services for Oracle applications. We have practices that are centered in the ERP business applications, the enterprise performance management, as well as analytics. We also offer managed services, a practice that provides ongoing administrative and support services. So Emtec also has a couple of other lines of business that provide advanced digital services, as well as infrastructure services, including laptops and secure access technologies from remote workers. And with that, we'll end the commercial and move into the body. We're here today because we feel like, while there's a lot of talk about going to the cloud, that it seems like it's looking, if we look a bit more closely at the specifics of moving from a highly manual planning process to cloud planning, it could be beneficial to you. We want to focus on a few key points regarding what practices for budgeting and forecasting are going to return the highest value for your companies, why Oracle's EPM Cloud deserves serious consideration as your next step in your finance system strategy, what other clients have experienced when they've moved from a spreadsheet planning process to Oracle EPM, and what it can mean to your business to head down this path. And then we'll follow that with a conversation with a senior finance manager with NVA. So let's take a look at what makes for successful planning. So a best-selling author says that change is inevitable and growth is optional. I think some organizations approach planning as an annual chore, that budgeting is a painful exercise to collect aspirational revenue and spend data, and then they go through a series of iterations to force the various data elements to fit together in a smaller box. And then comes a series of monthly management reports showing results that drift further and further away from plan as things change. Well, the Institute of Management Accountants, the IMA, has found that too much emphasis on forecasting and budgeting within a fiscal year leaves too little time for planning and analysis. It's needed to help a company develop and execute strategy. They published a report last year identifying 12 key principles for aligning your planning processes in support of achieving your strategic objectives. So our first principle is to develop a strategic long-range plan and identify specific initiatives and projects and plans to execute it. And once you identify a differentiation strategy, you need a plan based on short-term operational projects. That's kind of the first element in a cycle of planning. The second principle is to identify resources to implement project plans and put them in the budget. And annual budgets are a means for aligning resources to the execution of a long-term plan, and they also form the basis for managing the plan. And the third piece is to understand how operational plans will drive financial results and to monitor the progress of those plans. The top performing companies make explicit connections between operational decisions and their financial results. Typically, there's a monthly review process that compares financial performance to plan performance. That process should include updates on key projects to make sure that they're on schedule. And if a project's delayed, to find the business explanation for it. So in the fourth piece, the principle is to quickly identify the business reasons behind plan to actual finance variances. And it's often seen as something to avoid. Exceptions can also help a company to understand what's happening in the business. Now, for example, there was a real plan to grow revenue by 8%, say, but a key marketing campaign launch date was delayed and the promotional event didn't draw the anticipated response rate. So the best performing companies will delve much deeper into those issues per IMA and what caused the delay in the marketing campaign and what underlying root cause can be addressed to correct for this going forward. And then finally, the fifth foundational principle is to make course adjustments when you're falling behind on financial and operational goals. So rather than just adjusting expectations downward, the best performing firms are agile and they're focused not just on the financial progress, but also the progress being made on the operational goals. So financial forecasting can still be a vital function that serves as an early warning system. It should also provide an unbiased projection and a basis for managers to make changes in their operational activities. So the net of it is that successful planning is a 360-degree process, and it's used to drive fact-based decision making. So principles 6 through 12 from the IMA focus on driving accountability and planning for change. So first off, successful companies cascade both their financial and their non-financial operational targets down the company to more specific targets. So top-down target setting is readily supported. And in the application we're talking about here, the Oracle EPM Cloud planning business process, it can also be followed by bottom-up plans to meet those targets. And then even then, when those companies hold their people accountable for their financial and operational results, we got to keep in mind that the reason for planning is to enable successful behaviors in people, because people are the ones who are executing. So self-service access to current results with current comparisons to plans and targets help highlight the variances and provide a mechanism for digging into the cause of the difference. Principles 9 and 10 emphasize the importance of identifying what drives business success and developing key performance indicators, as well as establishing long-term and short-term targets for the KPIs. So dashboards and infolets display real-time text and graphics, provide insight at a glance. And there are advanced tools like predictive planning, which provide projections of future results based on historical actuals. It does this in a graphical form that gives users the ability to interact with the statistical projections. For example, they can see how their budget and forecast fit in the statistical projections and then drag the graphed projections up or down to smooth out anomalies or realign their expectations. And going beyond the numbers, planning really brings the greatest results when organizations develop initiatives and operational projects that are targeted at achieving these KPI targets, and they monitor the results of those KPIs and link them to financial incentives. So these are features that are built into the cloud planning application and provide ready access to some pretty advanced capabilities. So the foundation of this process is, of course, data. Data that's shared as the basis for each subsequent stage in an integrated planning process. And that data has to be presented in a variety of different views to support divergent business imperatives. So the primary objective of planning is not just getting the numbers right, but it's achieving planned results. And with that, business profitability. So effective plans need to provide the granularity and include the functionality to support planning for profitability. And depending on the business, this may be a focus on profitability by line of business, or it may include products and services, or maybe profitability by customers or channels. Transparency is another key information management challenge. It's key to understanding the root cause of changes from the plan. So world-class planning applications are going to provide visibility into data sourcing and mapping. We have some customers that have adopted data-centric practices, leading us to develop a financial variance analysis solution to provide seamless access, marrying source data with underlying transactions, such as journal entries. In addition, multiple views of the data are required to present accounting and regulatory perspectives, in addition to management reporting needs. Meeting these needs is an everyday challenge, and when disruption strikes, these capabilities become all the more important and urgent. So introducing fundamental changes to a business process such as planning involves a lot more than implementing a viable solution. It's about managing the introduction of the change. And successful organizations are typically very intentional in their approach. We strongly recommend that you consider starting with a foundational approach first. Start with an initial stage where you establish your primary performance measurement indicators, your drivers for your planning, and take advantage of real-time reporting, analytics, and calculations built into the applications, and standard management and ad hoc reporting. From there, we recommend a strategy of expanding upon the features and functionality that's provided in this initial stage, and focus on driving enhanced value to the organization. So implementing a full top-down, bottom-up planning, advanced characteristics for planning of various components that are key to the enterprise, potentially additional KPIs and analytics, and more advanced reporting and analysis capabilities. And ultimately moving toward a more advanced phase where you're fully integrating your financial services performance management solution, and you're enabling some enhanced business analytics. So this includes your long-range planning, full target setting and spreading, additional profitability modeling, as well as rolling forecasts and more complete analyses. So this is a quick example to kind of wrap up the high-level planning overview, where we're going to take a little bit of a look under the covers of a planning application. And the heart of the solution is the modeling engines in the center here. We may have different configurations for budgeting and forecasting and long-range planning. So for example, budgeting very often is fairly detailed and is aligned closely with the general ledger and the structures that are provided there. Forecasting a lot of times is done at a higher level. It's not necessary to forecast all of the detail as part of the budget. It can be more driver-based and can be at a more summary level, both from accounts, but also from organization and other dimensions of the plan. And then finally, long-range planning tends to be the most driver-based and allows you to configure economic drivers and various scenarios that allow you to look at what-if considerations for things such as acquisitions or major changes in the business. So coming into these modeling engines, on the left, we've got the data sources. The primary data source are actuals, typically brought in from a general ledger or multiple general ledgers. There's an integration point here that's a key element of this. As part of the budgeting and forecasting process, actuals are brought in to provide as near a real-time view of results as possible to compare against the budgets and forecasts that are provided. Planning administrators are involved to supply the drivers and the assumptions that are going to manage the planning process. Administrators are going to be not just operating the process, but also guiding it through the various stages, doing things like creating additional versions for being able to compare one cycle of a plan to a previous one. Planning users interact directly with forms into the modeling engines to submit forecasts, but also heavily from a reporting perspective, where they're able to bring in their actuals and their projections, and through a variety of tools, support the visibility into the results and incorporate those into their day-to-day activities and decision making. So I think these principles are laudable, but you can only go so far toward adopting them when so much of everyone's time is spent collating spreadsheets and making offline calculations to submit into an annual planning cycle. So while organizational change is hard in any circumstance, it can seem extremely hard or even impossible when the pace of change and the urgency for action are constantly increasing. So I think it's helpful to focus on this kind of change one step at a time. Finding the right solution seems daunting, and there will certainly be negative perceptions to overcome. So let's look at how building the business case has become a lot easier than it once was. So this is what the Gartner Group is saying about the direction of key financial systems. The vast majority of new sales for FP&A systems are cloud-based. And this isn't to say that on-premise is dead, but it does say that the playing field has shifted and that the focus is on the cloud. But perhaps more than that, they're saying when organizations are facing investments in these new systems, and when they do the due diligence and alternatives, far more often than not, they select the cloud. And you have to ask why that is when on-premise applications have such a rich history and have proven themselves over the years and for decades. I think it says that the cloud is standing up to scrutiny, that it's not just a fad or even a trend, that it is a legitimate option. And for most, it's a compelling choice. But the cloud has not always been the obvious choice. So let's talk about some of the fears, uncertainties, and doubts, or FUDs, that have previously led organizations to defer a decision to move to the cloud. Now, among these are aversion to taking on change, worries about the need for customizations, deep concern for security of cloud solutions. We'll also talk about concerns for control of the application environment, worries about how users will adopt the new solutions, and of course, the costs of moving to the cloud. So the first one I want to address is change. Best-in-class companies are now leading with a cloud-based approach, and it can start off with a simple migration of current capabilities or a reinvention of the process on the cloud. The pace of change is accelerating. Business uncertainty is a new norm, as we're currently experiencing. The demand for quick information has never been greater. So companies need to accelerate their financial processes across multiple sites and systems to support forecasting, planning, analysis, and even the financial close in near real time. Now, processes based in spreadsheets and other legacy tools have served finance functions pretty well to date, but when you take them to the cloud, you can reimagine those processes and really boost the productivity and flexibility of your teams. Oracle EPM Cloud Planning It kind of brings you the best of both worlds. It's supporting high degrees of customization where needed to support unique business processes. And it also comes with pre-built functionality for planning best practices. So consider adopting these processes where they fit to shorten your implementation timeframes and to elevate your core processes. One of the biggest advantages of being cloud-based is that new features and advanced functionality is delivered on a regular basis without you needing to upgrade. And new capabilities are increasingly incorporating advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, chatbots, and process automation. So the Oracle Cloud is built around multiple layers of security and multiple levels of defense throughout its technology stack. There are redundant controls that provide exceptional resiliency. So if a vulnerability is discovered and exploited in one layer, the unauthorized user will be confronted with another security control in the next layer. So end result is your company gets safer technology. From a process perspective, security policies and controls are maintained by people and technology at physical data centers that Oracle operates. From a people perspective, Oracle Cloud employs talented industry-leading cybersecurity professionals who are trained on Oracle's software security assurance practices. Oracle has about 19 data centers worldwide. They have over 1,000 software as a service applications, something on the order of 98 million users daily with 70,000 enterprise tenants. In fact, 19 of 20 top cloud providers run on Oracle. So the net of it is that senior security decision makers all agree that cloud providers are better able to keep security measures current and up to date than they can on premise. So 78% of businesses that are surveyed say that cloud could actually improve their security as well as their agility. From a control perspective, even though your application is running on the Oracle Cloud, you're still in control. Oracle's established communication protocols that provide information about your application and its use, as well as advanced notification of upcoming new features. And this enables you to explore new capabilities and characteristics in a separate development environment and to determine how and when you want to introduce those to your user base. The quarterly releases ensure that you have ready access to the latest and enhanced capabilities and technologies, but new features are delivered turned off by default. So you can turn them on and enable them when you're ready to use them. And I think that technologists invented the term user-friendly in a time when most computer applications weren't. If you watch a demonstration of Oracle EPM Cloud planning, you'll see simplified screens with colorful icons that really guide the user through planning workflows. And these workflows can be customized for your needs, with your individuals having additional capabilities to tailor their workspace to their preferences. And a compelling aspect of Oracle's solution, I think, is that it's tightly integrated with other Oracle applications, as well as common desktop applications. So a user with a need to access planning, as well as a financial consolidation and close, and even the cloud, Oracle ERP Cloud GL, will see consistent interfaces and familiar features, and no one has to give up on spreadsheets. Planning forms can be opened to Microsoft Excel, and Smart View, which is Oracle's Microsoft Office add-in, will enable your users to rapidly perform ad hoc analysis in Excel, but also to embed data queries directly into Word or PowerPoint that can be refreshed on a month-to-month basis. So companies are finding that the challenges of managing their workforces are made easier when they can offer modern enabling technologies that can attract and retain new workers. And finally, from a cost perspective, this is an illustrative example of cost to consider comparing. EPM Cloud implementation will incur a software as a service license, and implementation costs. So the red and lighter blue bars on the left side. Now, missing from this list of application costs are major components of costs from the on-premise application days, such as infrastructure costs for hardware, operating systems, and utilities, costs for technical support resources like internal DBAs and computer operations. If you only consider these out-of-pocket costs, you misunderstand the potential value to the business. There are quantifiable cost savings that you gain by moving to a centralized platform with automated functionality. From an administration perspective, which we tried to illustrate here in green, you can expect your administration efforts for preparation and consolidation of your spreadsheets or other budget submittals to be dramatically reduced. The time that users spend in preparing and submitting their budget, as illustrated in the yellow bars here, is also significantly less because of the online forms and the ability to utilize built-in features for building out their budgets and projections. Then in the dark blue, you have to consider the time that's spent in the review and adjustment of submitted budgets as part of the typical process for finalizing what will be submitted as a plan. And then the final piece here is from a reporting and analysis perspective. Having the right tools with easy access to integrated data can shift time spent on finding information to time spent doing analysis on it and reduce your cost in that way. And what's not quantified here is the increase in productivity and job satisfaction that will be realized by focusing on higher value work, let alone the benefits that adopting leading practices and tools can bring to the potential to impact your business results. Keeping in mind also that these costs are illustrated as a 3-year period. These savings and benefits will multiply over time. And conversely, you should expect that manual processes that are left unchecked are likely to grow in cost and complexity over time. So at this point, you think you might consider moving to the cloud. What should you expect? Well, a basic migration to the cloud can happen pretty quickly, but to be successful, client engagement is really essential. In this timeline illustration of a sample EPM Cloud planning implementation, the initial efforts primarily are our responsibility as an implementation partner, with increasing involvement of you, the client, over time. It leads into activities that are led by you, the client, with active support by us, such as UAT, and then the knowledge transfer and handoff to you through deployment. So depending on your internal staffing and your preferred operational model, we also offer ongoing managed services for various levels of application administration and support after implementation. Now, note that upfront technical efforts are completed very quickly here, in contrast with typical on-premise experience. So we don't have provisioning of servers and installing and configuration of software. You receive an email with a link that gives you access to your fully formed environment. Now, implementation timelines are going to vary depending on the business processes that are being adopted, as well as the degree of customization. Implementing the planning financials module from Oracle with its extensive pre-built functionality happens the most quickly. And additional modules are available for more detailed planning and reporting for workforce planning, for projects, and also for capital assets. And then custom models can also be developed to support almost any business need. And that brings us to the results. So we've seen some of the benefits of adopting Oracle EPM Cloud planning highlighted. Now I want to touch on how some of those benefits translate into business results for clients that have migrated to the cloud. So we're all striving to optimize the work experience for our employees. And one way to do this is to provide them with the latest technology with the greatest ease of use and the consistent user interface that Oracle provides across the EPM Cloud applications. It provides this through a simplified presentation that is customizable. From an integration perspective, the cloud application provides for automated direct integration capabilities. And with the bundling of applications in the Oracle EPM Standard Cloud and the Oracle EPM Enterprise Cloud packages, you have ideal platforms for building best-in-class operations. So the integration opportunities also extend to other Oracle platforms, including ERP and analytics. One example of this that we'd love to show you sometime is the financial variance analysis application I mentioned earlier that we've built to integrate ERP account balances and underlying journal entries with budgets and forecasts for siting and planning. I do this through direct connections to an Oracle Analytics Cloud Service application. From a savings perspective, we've talked about lower cost of ownership. You can also anticipate reductions in some of your application administration efforts, such as security and streamlined operations that are driven almost exclusively by a self-sufficient finance systems team. So you shouldn't anticipate heavy involvement from IT on an ongoing basis. And from a feature perspective, there are a couple considerations. First is that moving to the cloud will provide immediate access to additional features. And secondly, as new features become available, they'll quickly be made available to all cloud customers without any need for a client to upgrade or to patch. So to close out my comments regarding the experience, I'd like to reiterate that performance management is really a journey, and that we recommend you consider a multi-phased approach, starting small and enhancing your capabilities over time. That you take the time to adjust your processes to drive management behaviors that bring the most value to your organization. And as you build toward a plan-driven, accountable culture and further the adoption of your solutions and their enhancements. Now, if you reviewed the latest rankings from the Gartner Group, you've seen that Oracle holds a lead position in the market for cloud-based EPM software solutions. The Magic Quadrant on the left is for cloud financial planning and analysis solutions. And the one on the right is for cloud financial close solutions. Note here is that only Oracle appears in the upper right leader quadrant for both solutions. So formal evaluation by Gartner highlights Oracle's a top choice in either category, and even more so when you're looking for an integrated platform for your financial systems. And both of these application platforms are available in the Oracle EPM Standard Cloud subscription. So I want to encourage you to contact your Oracle representative and talk about EPM Cloud. And I invite you to contact us to evaluate migration and implementation options. And now I would like to welcome Mike Russell from National Veterinary Associates to join me and provide some firsthand perspective. Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, because I know that you sharing your experience in the real world is going to bring a whole new level of value to this conversation.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, so let me start by asking you to share some of your thoughts with our audience, Mike, and then we'll go into Q&A. But what was it about the previous budgeting process at NVA that drove the investment in a cloud-based planning application? And what do you like most about your current budget process?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, historically NVA, what we call NVA here, National Veterinary Associates, we're a mom and pop that grew very big, very fast over the last 20 plus years. And historically, we just did a lot of Excel spreadsheets, like a lot of companies. You know, you get scrappy, you get tenacious, and you just put things together. And in the early days, that was fine. But as we were highly acquisitive, we purchased a lot of sites, hospitals, pet resorts, emergency hospitals for animals. And over the years, it grew too big for our britches, so to speak. And a few years back, we realized that the the use case no longer supported Excel spreadsheets on shared folders, on shared drives, swaps back and forth via via email with multiple iterations and confusion across which version to use. I'm sure some of this stuff is very familiar to the audience, and so we had looked at various cloud solutions and realizing that the cloud was the right path, the online channel. And so, we recognized that our budget needed to change and our processes as well. And so the tool, was conducive with that. Dan, your second part of your question, you had asked what are my thoughts about how we've performed since? Is that right?
Yeah, and kind of what you like most about your current budget process, or where you think others might see the most value.
Absolutely. What I like the most is, as cliche as it might sound, it's online and on demand. There are our sites, our hospitals. We have veterinary hospitals all over the country, and in many cases, these doctors of veterinary medicine, they'll work all day, and then they need to get in and look at stuff at 11 p.m. midnight. And it's really nice that they can self-service from the web, from their computer. If they want to check something early in the morning, that's fine too. They're not chasing an Excel spreadsheet. The information is available to them. So that's been a big win for folks who are used to being autonomous. These are, in many cases, in fact, in all cases, these were sole proprietorship companies, meaning they, it was a person doing business as, and they're used to running their own financials. So suddenly getting that autonomy back, that insight back from when we purchased them, it really blends well with our message, which is we're here to serve those sites and serve our customer, our clients, our part of our family. So that I think was a big win for us, as well as just usability for our FP&A teams, our executive team. We can get numbers quickly, do actual to budget comparisons, and you get a lot more with the cloud beyond just web forms and all, and automated processes. You can pivot and adapt a lot faster, and that's really nice. So I think that kind of sums it up. But I think in the last couple of years, our journey has been successful and allowed us to take it to the next level and then enhance and adapt and improvise even more, which has really been beneficial for the company.
Excellent. Thank you. I guess, that's looking back. In terms of looking forward, we talked in the session about helping businesses to extend their vision through mechanisms like driver-based models and scenario analysis, predictive planning, and other best practices. Do you see ways that these types of enhancements might help NVA in the future?
Absolutely. If I can kind of reiterate again, our company was, our business model is straightforward. We're a holding company, so we purchase sites and then manage the back end, the back office functionality. But as we've grown and our sophistication need has grown, this kind of stuff becomes important, as Dan mentioned: predictive planning, conditional analysis, what-if scenarios. We have always done that kind of stuff offline in Excel spreadsheets, massive pivot tables, but the tools, there's just a plethora of tools available to you with all kinds of stuff you can do, like what I just said, and even more. And you can do forecasting and different scenarios of version 1, version 2, version 17. You can really expand and take it beyond just what you're doing with Excel spreadsheets. And so we have not gone too deep into it yet. But what's nice, and what we never had before, was the capability to do so. There was a point where we hit a wall and knew that without more advanced modern tools, we would be hindered in the future. And now we know the runway's wide open, and there's a bright horizon. If and when we decide to go into more deep analytics, which is coming very quickly, the demand for that data analysis, and with data science being a very hot topic today, a lot of sophisticated veterinarians sites that we're purchasing, they come in with an expectation, and we need to be able to provide that. And so now we have a tool that can enable it. So I've found, and I think most of the company has found, that PBCS has enabled the future and gives us options.
Wonderful. Terrific. Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Mike. How about we, at this point, move into our Q&A section of the presentation. So, Erica, I will hand this back to you and let you lead us through this piece.
Sure. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Mike. As I mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions, please enter them in the question panel. We actually have a handful that have come through, and I just want to say, if for any reason we don't get to your question, we will certainly follow up with you following the webinar again if we're not able to get to them. But so, first question, you talked about a few different planning modules. Which ones are typically implemented?
Okay. Yeah. So with the Oracle EPM Cloud planning, there are a number of options. In the standard package, there are 4 modules as well as long-range planning. Of those, financials is always the base. That's what we start with from an implementation perspective. The most common one that's adopted beyond that then is workforce planning. That's for planning detailed labor calculations, and it manages calculations of taxes with caps on taxes and allows you to plan by position or by employee. After that, I would say that there are some industries where project work is foundational to the business model, and the projects planning module can be very beneficial there, and kind of closely tied to that as well as the capital module, which can be deployed for managing capital assets, but also for capital projects. I think we're increasingly seeing the long-range planning be adopted, and regardless of which of the 4 modules are taken in. In addition, with the Oracle EPM Cloud Enterprise package, there are additional capabilities that include completely custom modules and free-form planning capabilities. And that's in addition to additional applications that are part of that support managing hierarchies and mapping tables, costing, and tax reporting.
Great, thank you. Next question, is Oracle Cloud Planning as effective if you are on a non-Oracle GL?
Yeah, absolutely. The planning application itself is not GL dependent. And planning has integration capabilities that allow you to bring in actuals from any GL. Now, Oracle GL brings seamless integration for drill back into underlying accounts and to the transactions in those accounts. So it makes easier variance analysis. But I a couple times mentioned our financial variance analysis solution that Emtec's developed that actually gives you those capabilities for any GL, the ability to bring transactions and balances into a table that then is integrated into planning. So you have seamless visibility across those platforms.
Great, thank you. I think this question is directed towards Mike. How was your CFO convinced to make the investment in your cloud planning solution?
Great question. Our CFO, there was a couple of factors that were presented to him. First of all, there's no doubt Oracle has a brand. They're one of the best in the business, and I have seen a lot and asked a lot of folks over the years. And Oracle for financials, by far, with what used to be known as S-Base and now is known as SmartView, because of its Excel functionality, pulling data from the cloud directly into Excel, they're so superior with what financial and accounting folks specifically need, being able to get data in Excel quickly and manipulate. So he knew that. And so that he really liked the fact that there was a brand recognition. He knew Oracle would be around. Oracle's been around and they're going to keep going. They're a successful business model. And so that was comforting. And then of course the cloud solution was critical for him. He knew that, we were, on-prem. Everything we had was on-prem. And we're still moving through that phase, but it's nice to have the budget in the cloud. So that was another factor. In addition, and this is always something with us finance and accounting folks, price. Price is very competitive. Of course, you're going to get a top-notch solution. It's not going to be a bargain basement pricing, but the reality is, stacked up against other solutions, it's very competitive and scalable, adjustable for what your needs are depending on the business size. And as we've grown, a few years ago we had a size that merited a certain price tag, and we've been able to renegotiate as we've grown and needed more licenses or needed more abilities. And when you consider the amount of money we've grown at the top line and then bottom line as a business, and then compare that to the overall expenditure for Oracle, it's quite frankly it's pennies on the dollar considering what you get. So all those factors were very involved for his decision. I think I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. The next question is, we have a very complex set of spreadsheets that are at the center of our strategic planning process. Can we replicate all of the dependencies and macros in the cloud planning tool?
Okay. The short answer to that is yes, those capabilities are in the planning application, and you are not alone. We've seen an awful lot of organizations that have evolved complex spreadsheet-based models over time. So while you can replicate them, we do recommend that you take the time upfront to break down and understand the complex processes and models, and to understand the framework that's provided in Oracle's pre-built functionality. It's modeled, the application is modeled based on planning best practices. And usually there are ways that you can adopt those processes and replace a lot of the functionality that's and complexity that's built into the spreadsheets with standard capabilities that are part of the application, which is always preferable. Now, that being said, we can build any custom calcs that are needed. Sometimes that takes the form of an industry specific model, like being able to model and plan for individual store sales for retail industry, or planning for shipping costs for a shipping company, or for a bank, a driver-based balance sheet planning model that handles new balances and runoff and helps to plan both balances and revenue associated with the balance sheet. So lots of options there.
Great, thank you. Next question is, are you saying that there's never a good reason to print on the on-prem version of planning?
I guess I am. I think that for a new implementation, we would always recommend the cloud. It can handle anything that could be handled by an on-premise, and it will end up being cheaper. But if you look at the built-in modules first and go with fully custom if needed, the on-premise allowed you to be fully customized. You can recreate that in the cloud as well, if that's your preference.
Great, thank you. Next question, what were the biggest challenges that were faced during your implementation and rollout?
Another Mike question. Yeah.
All right, Dan, that was directed
Mike,
towards me or to you?
Yeah. Sorry, you, Mike.
Want me to repeat the question?
Okay, great. Sorry about that. No, I got it. Yeah, absolutely. I figured it was. Biggest challenge for us, and I'm hoping this will probably ring a bit familiar to folks. Back then, when we started this, there was no dedicated financial systems team. There was no systems team here at NVA for financials. We had an IT group, and we still do, but there was no dedicated financial systems group. This implementation was done as a night job by the accountants, and they got through it. And of course, our partner at the time was Emtec, and shameless plug here. They did a terrific job working with the group that was here. But that was one of the biggest hurdles for NVA, was that the accountants were, as always, excellent at what they do. But when it comes to building out a tool for from a systemic perspective, that can be challenging. And I think one of the lessons learned, and why I have a job, is because we realized that we needed a systems team in-house. Not a large one. It's frankly very reasonable for the size we are, but having dedicated on-site resources, even one or two people that just know a bit about how that's going to work, that can bridge the gap between how accountants and finance folks look at data and what they need, and then from an IT and system implementation perspective is extremely critical. And of course, we got through it, but it was a lot of back and forth and trying to educate, as well as to make users out of people who were never wanted to be users. They just want to, get data. They don't want to have to build and design and they want to be users. They don't want to be system architects. So that was one of the biggest challenges. In addition, I think the more entrenched you are in what you've done, and we were certainly this way. We've been doing business for over 15 years with Excel spreadsheets and back and forth, and not utilizing technology of the day until we finally realized we gotta accelerate here, and right size. The longer you are, the more it's not painful. It's going to be a little uncomfortable because you have to sort of change the way you look at things sometimes. Recognizing you're training people and a new way of utilizing a system or a tool. But what I've found is the tools that Oracle provides and the way that Emtec solutions them, the ramp up time is minimal. We've turned it. I've been able to, convert, so to speak, over 75 people, and growing. And they share word of mouth. You get a couple subject matter experts, people who really, take to the tool, and they share it. And it's communication is key, and it goes very quickly. So I think depending on how far back you go and how long you've been doing stuff, you just have to be prepared for some training and understanding. But otherwise, I think it wasn't seamless, but it was worth it in the end. Dan, I hope that captures it.
No, that sounds terrific. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna do one more question, and then we'll wrap up here. We know that we want to implement a planning solution, but are not comfortable acting right now. How long can we wait to move forward without losing another year?
Okay. Well, assuming that that's a question based on calendar year budgeting, because obviously you have different fiscal years, different timing, but it adjusts appropriately. Typically, if an organization's looking to launch their budget cycle in, say, a September, October timeframe, you'd want to get started probably 3 or 4 months before that timeframe, so you have the opportunity to fully get things rolled out and users up to speed. So, ideally, starting in about a June timeframe would be key there. There is another option, and that is with going with a more minimal implementation initially, where you basically set up planning to be your plan consolidation engine. So you're not doing the full-on implementation, getting all the users involved. It's a tool for the FP&A organization and finance to bring in common spreadsheets and bring them together and see the consolidated results and handle adjustments and submittal of the plan there. And that would buy you another couple months. You could start something like that in maybe an August timeframe and still have something available come October or November when you need it. And then beyond that, if you can't make it in time for the actual budget cycle, a lot of organizations will consider introducing a planning application first as a forecasting tool. So basically, if you think in terms of maybe by the second month of your new year, you want to have the ability to compare your results to your budget and start to come up with an adjusted plan. You can introduce planning in a forecasting capacity, which is typically a little bit less intense, although the timing can be challenging because it means you're doing an implementation over year end, when obviously things can be pretty busy for accounting and FP&A. But a number of options. It's never too late to start, but it's obviously the sooner the better. The sooner you gain the benefits.
Great. So thanks, Dan. So I would like to give a big thank you to Mike Russell from MVA for taking the time to join us today, and thanks to everyone for joining us. And just a reminder that we did record this session, and we'll be sending it out as soon as it's available. If you have any additional questions, please reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Mike. Very much appreciate it.